Well, drought's creeping into the state, and Paul, last time we talked to you, things were looking pretty good for grazing cattle on wheat. So where are we at now?
So a couple of months ago, whenever I last visited with y'all, that we had the potential for an outstanding fall forage production year for wheat pasture. We had a lot of moisture through August, and right there at planting we had really good conditions. What I've found in the past is if you don't have rain after establishment, we can have a lot of more rain later in the season and it won't make up for that deficit. We'd really need moisture, in September to really get a jump start on wheat or fall wheat forage production. And this year it was kind of slow coming. We're getting some moisture now in certain parts of the state, but we're still kind of behind on our fall forage production.
So for producers who are really counting on that wheat pasture to come up to graze their cattle on, what are some supplementation methods that they can use or things that they can put out in the field to kind of get them by till that stand becomes more established?
In the 1980s, Gerald Horn and Gary Vogel did research where they were feeding silage every day to cattle on wheat pasture, and they used wheat silage or sorghum silage or corn silage, and they were able to decrease the amount of wheat forage consumption by about 2/3 of a pound for every pound of silage they fed. So they were able to essentially double the stocking rate of cattle on wheat pasture without decreasing the animal performance on those cattle. So a few years ago, I got into a situation where we were short on wheat pasture, and I looked at that old research, and we decided to use some round bale silage made out of Bermuda grass. And we were able to feed that once a week, every other week, as those bales needed to be replaced. And we were able to essentially double the stocking rate on those cattle, or stock normally with about half the amount of forage.
So when we're talking about silage, is there a specific type that's better than the other? Especially and it might even depend on where you're at in the state. What works better for southern Oklahoma might work better in northern Oklahoma.
Well, what we found with that Bermuda grass silage, it was about 14% crude protein and mid-50s in TDN. So it was a fair quality forage product, but that was real similar to the type of silage that they were able to feed in the 80s in that research then. Mid-50s in TDN, but lower in protein. So we think if it's a palatable forage product, cattle will consume it, and it will offset that decrease in forage availability on wheat pasture.
So when's the kind of the breaking point for that? Like when you're using silage to kind of supplement cattle as wheat's still trying to come up and the waiting on more moisture. When does it just kind of time to maybe think of some different forage options?
My rule of thumb, if we want to maximize animal performance, is we want 5 pounds of forage dry matter at turnout per pound of animal body weight. So that's about 2,500 pounds of wheat forage dry matter for a 500-pound steer. In our normal stocking rate of 2 acres per steer, that's about 1,250 pounds of forage per acre. That's about 6 to 8 inches of forage height at that time. So for a normal turnout time of early November, we're going to be way behind that for this field, for instance. And if we're much below that 2 to 3 pounds of forage dry matter per pound of animal body weight, we really need to provide some sort of supplement, whether it's supplemental silage or a high quality hay to offset that deficit.
All right, thanks, Paul. If you'd like some more information about silage and other supplementation options, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.